You're alive.
All right, thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to, what's this, our fourth meeting?
Fourth meeting.
Fourth meeting.
Yeah.
Impressive of the group. I appreciate you guys taking all the time as usual. Um, Tricia, could you just call the roll, please?
Yes. Chairman Paul Rankin,
Here.
Fay Curry,
Here as well.
Sienna Scott, Barbara Chennault,
Present.
Stu Cohen,
Yep.
and Brandon Wright.
I'm here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. One of the things that we haven't done all the time is, well, actually, first let's get to the minutes. The minutes, I believe, were distributed to everybody. Did you have a chance to look at them? No? Yes?
I don't recall
You
receiving
don't,
them.
you didn't get them?
Okay.
So, all right.
And forward that to everybody.
You did send them out? If we
Well,
have,
It's questioned to me.
all right. Well, if they have not gone out, then we're going to defer approving the minutes until the next meeting, in which case we'll go ahead and review both sets of minutes from this meeting and the prior one.
Yeah.
Good.
Go
Paul,
ahead, Stu. Yes, Stu.
you and Tricia were going to possibly redo previous minutes or something,
We
Yeah.
did.
clean them.
We did.
We did. They're all cleaned up, all in accordance with the city requirements. So, there was probably just a little glitch in getting
Okay.
out that last set.
Very minor changes, actually, Stu.
So, but do we need to approve it or are we okay as is?
There were no substantive changes of any kind. All there were you had to get some order to it.
It was format.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for doing that.
Not a problem at all. The one thing that we haven't been doing that is always in the city format, and that is to ask if there are any persons from the public who are on this call, and if there are any who would wish to speak to the commission. There are no members of there are no members of the public on this call, and therefore there is no comments from the public. So we can move on. All right. So we have just this meeting and two others left to produce a final report to send to the council. That's by the 4th, I guess, close of business of the 4th, which is just, less than a week away. So, I'm going to leave it a little bit up to everybody to sort of talk through where we want to go. I'm just going to give you a sense of where I think we might want to go, and then I will open it up for everyone to comment and redirect and do all those good things. My sense is that we're missing a little bit of data at this point in time on comps, comparable pay for the city manager position and maybe the mayoral position, but certainly the city manager position. I did put in a call to that international, I guess it's this, whatever Mike Malinoff told us that he was a member of the city, I think it's City Council Managers Association or something like that, and didn't get a call back from them. But they do have comps there because I went onto their website. So they could look up, for example, cities between 30 and 70,000 or something like that, and just give us a sense of what, what 4 or 5 of those actually look like, because Mike had cited that. And, since we are talking about potentially increasing that salary base for the city manager's position, I think it would be useful to have a sense of what some other places are paying. What do you all think about that?
It's Stu, sure. It would be helpful. But I think it's going to show us that he's way underpaid.
I actually do too. And in fact, they had 2 jobs posted for cities smaller than Annapolis on their website. And the pay was just slightly above, and this is for cities half our size, slightly above what Mr. Malinoff currently makes. So I'm not going to be shocked, but it's always nice to give the council, some data. That they can
Paul,
look at.
can you print screen those and send them to us?
Yeah, I can.
Reference?
Sure.
Just
I'll
not,
go back.
not the description, but size. I think that might help in our background knowledge. And also, Tricia, in the past, we used the municipal league to get some data. Do they still provide those services, like for the other positions, like city council and mayor?
They do, but the Frederick data that I gave you is more
Yes.
recent. And that's why I went ahead and shared that survey with you.
Gotcha. Is
Because
that the only one comparable in the state?
that's the only one that I've received. And that one gets into considerably more jurisdictions than what we did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And what the MML does as well.
Yeah, we've used Frederick before, and I remember in other commissions. So thank you for that. But I didn't know if there was anything anywhere else.
You know what
So
you're
I
doing up here.
know other states, cities we've mentioned during the course of these
Stay in
meetings.
this lane,
Thank
past
you.
the next light, you bear to the right.
We can hear you, Stu.
There we
Sorry.
go. He just muted him.
Okay.
So if you want that, that's fine. I know that a lot of your discussion, because you also reached out to the city council representative, Lisa Rodvian,
Yeah.
as comparable with the county. This is something I run into all the time. It's like, what is really a good comparable to the city of Annapolis? Some of what we have here is, we have the mayor sitting on the council. So as you can tell with the
Mhm.
county, they have a chair and a vice chair because of their structure. I don't know that that's something that would necessarily affect your ultimate decision, but that's obviously a consideration, as well as how a jurisdiction is set up. I do know from previous work, and Faye, you probably remember this as well, that for the city manager, it's just not comparable in terms of having a review commission, a salary review commission, or similar set up to influence the salary of the city manager. So again, some of what I think leads you more in your deliberation is what is the structure and what is the more of the how are the comparables with some arrangement that's more like the city. And I that was a really good conversation, I think, with the city manager, because he talked more in terms of structure of government.
Gotcha. So if we decide, let's say we take the course of putting the city manager not in the review commission, can we get legal on to give what would be involved in us making that recommendation? Will they do that for us? If that's a part of what we recommend, but before we recommend it, it may be too convoluted, but it may not be. It may be just as simple as our recommending and the council's voting on it, which I'm assuming. But can legal give us any guidance on that?
I think so. I can reach out, and I'll reach out today and see if
If the group wants that. I'm sorry, I'm just offering that because I think
So-
we're probably landing very well with the city manager. I think the mayor and the city council people is what we really want to frame up even more. But I think we
I
have
think
a kind of strong recommendation for the city manager. I think we may be on one accord unless we come to a vote, but when we come to a vote, but
yeah,
I would love to know if we recommend that, how would that look? Or can we even make that recommendation?
I would say part of that conversation, and whether you want me to have it and bring that back to everybody.
This
Or
time
you
it's
want to
probably
invite-
quicker. I defer to the group what they want.
Yeah.
Well,
This-
so let's go ahead.
This
Stu.
is, yeah, I think legally we've got to propose a salary. We should make the recommendation that it's crazy that this is before us. But we've also got the comp study that the city has provided already in terms of a salary range for E6 city manager.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't mind. I agree, Faye, we should spend our time right now thinking about the alderman and the mayor, but I don't think that we can. If we propose no salary increase until they change the legislation, they
Oh, no, I'm
cannot
not
give him
thinking
a
that.
raise.
I really wasn't thinking that. I was thinking city manager, we might make a recommendation. We might recognize, all of this is might recognize that it's inadequate based on da 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 da. But also the commission in a separate recommendation that did not come before the commission at the next commission, and it be under where all the other salary recommendations come for somebody that's not an elected official. You know what I'm saying? Something, but I think it's two-step with the city manager. We recommend, if we recommend an increase, and going forward that it not be a part of the commission. But like, I'm just asking, can we make that recommendation of it not being part of commission because of the code that has been already established with the city of Annapolis? Is that cumbersome if we decide to make that recommendation, or do we not care and what happens after we make the recommendation? I might be drilling it down a little too far, but I'll defer to the group.
I'm fine with making two sets of recommendations. I agree with Stu, that, we have to in this case, because it's in our remit, our legislative remit, that we have to do that. So I think that's a given. But having said that, there's no limitation on what side remarks we wish to make, I'm sure. I mean,
Good.
the legal's not going to be able to say, well, you can't say anything outside of what we told you in the legislation. The legislation basically says nothing.
Gotcha.
So
I would
Okay.
offer, though, that when you have your report, that it's then the Office of Law through the Legislative Policy Analyst's responsibility to craft the ordinance that's the
Mhm.
enacting legislation. So it's going to be important that it's like, well, it's this or it's that, that's where I think the legal opinion comes in, is if you have a plan A and a plan B, how that ordinance should be crafted. So, I,
wouldn't Plan A be what we have to do?
yeah,
Is we have to give salary recommendations for three groups: mayor, city manager, alderpersons. Full stop. Then we'll have side remarks, and they can craft the legislation any way they feel like it at that point. But I think so. Ours is almost like in the Federal Register. They tell you at the beginning of a Federal Register notice that here's the background and information,
yeah,
and some conclusions. We're just giving them a conclusion.
that's right.
They can throw it out or keep it.
And I just want to remind you all, my conversation with Harry Huntley and my alderman from Ward 1, he specifically said he thought it would be helpful for us to make a recommendation that the city manager be removed from this structure. And, even though he thinks the legislation is certain to pass, but he thought it would be helpful for us to do that. The other thing I want to just mention, I reread the code. Not only do we have to propose salary increases if we wish, but also allowances.
Yes.
Right.
Now, Trish, I have a question. The city study that's being done on salaries, that includes the city manager.
It does.
So was the intent, when that contract was put out to do that, was the intent that be removed from this commission?
The intent was, and because I'm the primary person that put together the scope of work, the intent was to gather this data so that when the Salary Review Commission met, you had that information. What came out of it was the reality of over time and our experience administratively about how easily the city manager's pay gets out of kilter with the leadership that report to the city manager. And so my goal was to bring all of that to you folks here for consideration, to see where are the challenges and are there some ideas or some solutions to address those challenges. And you're discussing that right now, you know, whether that's
Mhm.
something that makes better sense to remove from the code and have it more aligned with executive leadership when that those pay ranges or pay scales are set. And then it allows, you know, other decision making at the time of hire. The council has to approve the salaries of all the executive leadership. So council confirmations required both in terms of the candidate and in terms of the pay set for those individuals hired in those positions. So a range is not necessarily what an individual is going to be paid. Somebody would be paid that within the range with other considerations. What we do in the city whenever we're setting pay is we are considering that person's pay relative to those that are falling under their authority, as well as their knowledge, skills, abilities, what they bring to the table in terms of their own credentials. So all that should matter in setting the pay rate, but if you don't have a range that lets you set a pay rate that at least achieves the ability to pay an individual above the individuals that report to them, then you don't have a mechanism to ever get that in the right alignment.
So thank you. Is the comp study final?
So the comp study has been reported to the council. The enabling legislation is going before the council. It's going through various committees. And so separately is the executive pay plan from the listing of civil service positions that have their titles and grades set. That's also a resolution in the form of a resolution gone before the council. We already adopted the pay scales with the exception of the executive pay scale. The executive pay scale moves from a step system, which we've had for a very, very long time here, to open range for the executive leadership. The consultants actually recommended that our non-represented employees also be on an open range, but we weren't able to do that in this round. So the executive pay schedule is a separate piece of legislation. I'm pretty sure I shared that with you all. I did definitely share with you a copy from the report, which is identical to what's in the legislation. So you have what the current individuals are making and what the range recommendation is. So that it's the same. The other piece of legislation is under for those positions that are in the exempt service, which is all of the directors, it's the attorneys in the office of law, it's all the mayor's staff. They're what we consider exempt service members, and their titles and grade assignments are in the law. They're in the code in Article 3 in the exempt service section. So that has to come before them in the form of an ordinance. So we've got 4 pieces of legislation, I think, before them that addresses all that. And another recommendation that's happening, as I think I also mentioned, is 2 divisions have been recommended to be departments. One of which is human resources. The other is our information technology group. And human resources was a department until Mayor Panelides came into office and then made some reorganizational changes, which included turning human resources into a division of the city manager's office instead of a department. And so all the comparables out there are that it is a department. And so that ended up being a recommendation, as well as information technology. And so that was also a recommendation of the consultants.
Trish,
Yes.
I don't know if you have this information, but is there a fiscal note that goes with all those changes, or has anyone calculated what the fiscal?
The fiscal note is there. I don't know how familiar you all are with researching legislation for the city. But if you even were to go in into you go to government, you go to city council meetings and legislation, I think it's called, and then you can set by year or all years. It goes back to 2013, and you're able to go in there, and what you can even do is you can search salary review commission, and you'll pull up all of the legislation that has been that has that information in it. What you would want to do is more recently, and I can send you the link, but more recently you want to look up executive pay, or you want to look up position summary, or you want to look up department reorganization, I think is a title on the one that brings those two positions, or yeah, those two divisions into department level. And when you go there to the particular legislation, you have all the history. You have first reader, so you'll know how far it's gotten. The fiscal note will be there, the staff report will be there. And any amendments will be there. And if something is completely through, it'll show as signed. The last version, if it's enacted, will be signed. And that's your enabling legislation.
So thank you. So that can all get confusing. And it is confusing because I don't recall seeing a couple of pieces of that stuff. But that said, what we are facing is a parallel track piece of legislation, which presumably, since it gives a salary range for the city manager, has effectively already taken away that issue from this group, as it were. Not officially, but unofficially, which is fine, I guess. I mean, nothing we can do about it. But that begs the question, to me at least, which is, so what are we doing here talking about the city manager? Why don't we just take that salary range and recommend it? I mean, what's the point here? This has already been vetted. It's already been through committee. People on the council have already looked at it. The mayor's looked at it. Legal's looked at it. Why are we playing around with the city manager's salary? I ask that question of anybody.
And I agree. I agree, Paul.
I agree, and I also remember that Mike said he believes the appropriate salary would be north of 250, compared it to what Newport did with an inexperienced individual, a smaller city, less responsibilities. But
Yeah, he was 225 and up, Stu, and wanted north of 250.
right.
Well, yeah. But what's the city say? And I apologize, Stuart, for jumping in on you.
No, that's I think what was review what the comp review said.
So Trish, do you have that in your head?
Yes, I believe it was 280 was the max. Hold on. Try to be very efficient and have
Don't
all
we
my
all? There's too
fingertips.
much going on.
A
So
little
while Trish
bit.
is looking for that, can I ask a question? If anyone remembers, what was the salary or what is the salary of the police chief? Is it around there?
210.
He's
210?
he's since gotten from that report that I sent you,
Mhm.
out of the class and comp study, he is making 212 now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
again, he's making more than the city manager right now.
Right. I just want to make sure that when we make the recommendation, that it is going to be north of the department heads that report to him. And I in all my notes, I just lost that figure. That's all.
And the other sort of semi-comp, backing up your point, Barbara, is fire chief too. They're up there pretty high.
Right.
We should
The
look at
fire
fire.
chief is like 190 plus.
Okay.
So he's just a shade lower than the city manager. Again, you're talking about maximums on the pay scale that are going to exceed that. They still have potential for growth. If there was no change, or just assuming you want to set the city manager's pay above what it is now, you're gonna be overshadowed in 4 years. You know, there'll still be an opportunity for growth for the current staff.
Paul,
Yes, sir, Stuart.
maybe to help us along, I'm gonna make a motion, recommend a city manager salary of $260,000 with cost of living increases each year for the next 4 years.
Okay, so if I heard you, you broke up slightly, Stu. I'm going to repeat your motion, please. That is, so Stuart Cohen
Sure.
made a motion that the commission recommend a salary scale for the city manager starting at 260,000. And do you want to go up higher than that or allow room for growth, or how do you
No,
want?
I said with cost of living increases for each of the subsequent years.
Okay, so city manager's position, 260,000 with cost of living increases going forward, right?
Correct.
Let me just write that down. Do I have a second to that motion?
I second. This is Brandon.
Hey,
I second
Brandon,
it.
thank you. Brandon seconds it, so an opportunity for all to discuss now. So, so we have on the table to 200 from Stu and seconded by Brandon, a motion to recommend. The commission recommends a salary for the city manager of $260,000 with cost of living increases going forward. Faye.
I have no discussion. I just wanted to offer that.
Oh, so you're good with that? With that?
May,
proposal?
may I offer something to you all?
Please do.
Sometimes it's not a cost of living adjustment, it's a pay scale adjustment. And so what we did from FY24 into FY25 is we completely revamped the scale. And so we had a transition amount, meaning that when people were in X place on the FY24 scale, we looked at the next step that was closest to but higher than for that transition. And so because we weren't able to have an executive pay scale in place at the time, we went into FY25 and implemented everybody else's pay scale change. We ended up keeping the executive leadership on that step system. So that wasn't a cost of living adjustment per se, kind of was, but it wasn't a flat rate adjustment across everybody. And so for us, it's kind of curious or interesting how if your language is really specific and doesn't allow for an adjustment that keeps the city manager above the pay rate of those supervised, I just want you to kind of consider language that would allow for that to be the outcome, because that's really the intent.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm more than happy to take a friendly amendment to clean up that language. One and two, I just wanted to point out, I made the motion strictly on the salary just to keep it clean. I think there should be a separate motion in terms of a recommendation that the city manager be removed from the salary review commission.
Thank you, Stuart. Let's get to that a second motion in a minute. Is there anyone, and then Sienna, I see your hand up. Is there anyone who wishes to make a friendly amendment to Stuart's original amendment that would replace the words cost of living adjustment with pay scale adjustment? Anyone?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I don't think you can make it, Stu, but that's okay.
Okay.
Barbara, just say, yeah, we're just going to add those words. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, super. Okay, so Barbara's made the friendly amendment, Stu, so it's now replacing those words with pay scale adjustment going forward. Thank you very, very much.
I also offer that the executive pay range for the E6 was 196 to 294.
Who's that?
The executive pay scale recommendation, the legislation that's going around,
196 to
294.
got it. That's big.
And for the leadership, the department heads, it's 160 to 240.
Thank you. Sienna?
My question was going to be, isn't the comp study, gives us a range.
Mhm.
And I would feel more comfortable giving a range as a recommendation rather than giving a single number. Because, as Mike said, we may be looking for a new city manager in the near future. And that's a very comfortable range. The top of 294, I think, includes the 260, which is maybe where we would like to see it now. But it also gives, if you have some superstar who's willing to come to Annapolis, we might be willing to pay them 294. So I would be more comfortable in establishing a range than in a specific figure at this point.
Could I just drill down with you for a second, Sienna? So is what you're suggesting effectively, now it's not per se, but effectively an amendment to what Stu's amendment says, and taking his number of 260 and creating a range 260 to 294?
No, I was using the 190, 198, which was the bottom figure that the consultants recommended.
Yeah, 196. Yep.
196. And I'll just throw this out there. I think if we have paid consultants to give us professional advice on things like salary, I think it's important to listen to them. And so I do think that they're recommending a range, and that's my thought on us making a recommendation of a range also.
You know what, Sienna, that's a very valid point, because we may not have someone, we're thinking of Mike, I am, and his qualifications. The next person, if he chooses to move on, may not be to that level of expertise, and that's a good valid point, Sienna. Thank you for offering that. So the next person after Mike maybe cannot not have that much under his belt. But with Stu, were you thinking of that when you made that recommendation?
No. Well, here's my thinking. That range is if there is a E6 on the salary chart, and the salary is removed from the Salary Review Commission. Under current code, we've got to make a recommendation, and the city council has to approve whatever. They cannot go higher than what we approve or recommend, but they've got to pick a salary, not a range under the current code structure. That's why we should recommend in a separate thing that the city manager be removed, and we can include in that there be a salary range for a city manager of 196 to 290 or whatever it is. But our job is to recommend a salary for the next 4 years. We don't have the authority to recommend a range, as far as I can tell.
Actually, it is a range. Currently I think it's 130 to 180. It is a range. And it's a
So
range
how does he get 200 then?
because of the cost of living. So there's a range, and then can be modified by cost of living provided too.
What was I don't have it in front of me because I'm in the car. What was the recommendation from the last commission?
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now if I can find it.
140 to 180 with annual cost of living adjustments.
So to sort of bring us back to the center then. So we have a motion on the table. Original motion was 260K, friendly amendment. It was a straight 260K, no range, with a friendly amendment to include the words pay scale adjustment going forward. Great. Then Sienna has raised the issue, not a formal motion, but I'm not going to get crazed. But the Sienna's raised the issue. Can we do a pay scale? Stu thought we might not. We can apparently make a recommendation for a range. So that's where we stand. How do you guys want to go forward? I don't want to get into worrying about counter amendments and all sorts of stuff yet. Do you want to, Stuart,
I
do
got-
you want
I-
to think about changing your number to a range, Stuart?
If that's allowed, then yes, but
It is.
I I think we need to also include in there that with the,
Stu, we lost you, but
I'm trying to think it through. I don't want to put Mike in a bad position. I don't want to put the city council in a bad position. What can we do that make it? I want to force the city council to take the manager out of this commission.
Yeah, that's a great. But the verbiage in the previous commission reads as the range of salary for the city manager should remain unchanged, 140,000 to 180,000. The provision in the city manager's benefits call for a cost of living adjustment every 2 years should be deleted, instead replaced with language calling for the city manager to receive a cost of living adjustment when other senior staff department has received such an adjustment. So I thank you for looking for that, Tricia, but I just wanted to read the actual language from the previous commission. So the range is allowed, recommendations are allowed, and I'm still thinking of Sienna. So if Mike leaves, we make this recommendation. What happens if we've recommended that and the commission recommended that it should be this nice salary, but then who's going to have more weight? Obviously, like Sienna, is going to be the comp study that they invested this money in doing, correct? So they're going to lean more probably towards the class and comp study. So,
well, I want to take exception to that last piece of your comment. I'm thinking that if we go in at a first of all, we have 196 to 294, so that's comp study range. If we go in at a level which clearly puts the city manager at in our opinion, because this is just our opinion, at a higher starting level. So I'm just going to throw out 250 just for fun. Up to 294. Then that's just, what we're saying is hire somebody competent, hire somebody who has the qualifications to fit in this range, but we don't think he should be making or she should be making anything less than 250. That's kind of my thinking about what our recommendation might look like to the council.
Gotcha. So that you looked on the website of the recommendation Mike had. So the level of experience that Mike has, there's still city managers that may be out there that don't have that level of experience, but are qualified to be city managers. So you're thinking that Annapolis needs to just look for those type level city managers. I can see that point.
Yeah, and I'm looking also at, you got 212 for a police chief. You probably have other there, and Trish could probably tell us. I'll bet there's other people up there in the low 200 range or getting there soon enough.
I hear you.
So I'm just saying, start him at a point where he would be the highest paid person going forward, and then they can in that range. And I just picked out of the air 250 to 294. Then find a person of that level, of that caliber.
Yeah,
we're saying.
Gotcha. Now I'm clear. Thank you for allowing me to have this discussion.
Thank you.
Paul,
Yes, sir, Stuart. Yes, sir.
I sort of like that, but let me offer one separate thing. I think we need to do something that makes it easier on the council to give a huge raise to Mike, okay? So why don't we include in there that our recommendation is for the city manager, whatever range we choose, but that the incumbent be set at 260 or something like that, which then only applies to the incumbent, Mike, not to any future hire.
Go ahead, Trish.
First of all, I want to make sure we all understand that you're setting rates of pay for the next electorate. And I'm a little concerned that if you make any comments about how to handle current incumbents, it kind of takes you away from the fact that you are not adjusting pay for current incumbents. You're really focused on the next electorate cycle. And that doesn't mean that the current city manager, I mean, this is really something that within our payrolls, the mayor's the one that sets or negotiates the rate of pay for the city manager. I think it's incumbent on us. Maybe the recommendation is to allow for appropriate in pay range adjustments. Well, let me just take a,
So
I'm
let
talking
me,
myself out of what I'm about to say.
let me,
Yeah,
that's funny. Let me, so I agree with Trish's point that our job is forward-looking. But to Stuart's point, you know, what if Mike sticks around for a year and a half? That's forward-looking.
it's forward looking.
And
I would take you back to the language, Paul, in the code, which says the initial base pay salary shall be fixed within the provided range upon the city manager, based upon the city manager's education employment experience. The annual performance review shall be based upon criteria established in advance by the mayor in consultation with the manager of human resources. So that implies that the incremental increases are only based on annual performance review. Maybe you want some language that allows for adjustments to the pay, period, by the mayor. That may not be
well, but then that gives the
enough for
mayor,
your council, but I mean, something that allows for the mayor to set the rate of pay, what that rate of pay adjustment is once a year. No more than once a year. So that if, say, a new mayor came into place, you had somebody who's continuing into the new administration, allows the new mayor to set that rate of pay upon their arrival, or at, you know, just so it's controlled, so it's not more than once a year or something along those lines, as opposed to that it's tied to the anniversary date of that person's hire.
Deanna?
And that can we add to that, for example, the opinion of the commission, if we are of this opinion, that the city manager's salary should remain higher than the his or her direct reports. We can make that recommendation.
I think it's just a matter of language in the law, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. So, I mean, we can certainly make the recommendation and the council can act or not act.
Right.
So to Sienna's point, then it seems to me, for what it's worth, that we can make any recommendation we want to make, you know, within the bounds of reason. And that's seems reasonable, that, you know, it's our opinion that the city manager's pay remain above that of his or her direct reports. Seems like we could do that. Go
This
ahead, Deanna.
is Stu. You know, based on this discussion, I see the range is an appropriate way to go forward with a lot of recommendations in it. I'm more convinced than ever that this has nothing to do with us as a salary review commission. This is This is city business that the city needs to take care of. And take it away from this commission.
Well, Stu, let me then go ahead and I think I hear you. And let me suggest something.
Why don't I withdraw my motion?
Right. Okay. All right.
So that we can craft what we now think is the appropriate range motion. And then in terms of recommendations, we can work on those. But we should, I have a sense we need to move on also, start dealing with the other 9 positions we got to deal with.
Anybody have comment on Stuart's point? So Stuart, you're officially withdrawing your motion?
Yes.
Okay. And then Stuart's also made a recommendation that we, well, do you want to just take care of this issue right now if we can, with regard to the city manager? I mean, here's what I'm thinking, and please disagree as you like. So Stuart's withdrawn his motion. Maybe we go back and we say that the components of our recommendation going forward would be that we believe the city manager, and this in no order. The city manager's pay going forward should always be above his direct reports. B, we believe that based on the qualification that the city should hire, a well-qualified city manager in the range of 250 to 294, which falls within that comp study approach. And that actually would be it. And then we could talk about, and then lastly, as either a footnote or something else, we would say, and by the way, we don't think that the next salary review commission should have the city manager's pay in their remit.
I think that encompasses everything that we've been talking about. I like it.
Does anybody disagree with that and that approach? Stu, you good with that, Faye?
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
I'm comfortable with that, but I just want to check one thing.
Sure.
Trish, does that allow, if we do that, does that allow the city council to adopt a salary of $260 for the city manager starting in December, if that's what they choose to do, or $270 or $280?
So they would be unlikely to make a recommendation that would be higher as a starting salary.
Starting higher than $250?
I have, in my experience with the city, they don't make adjustments to that. They are probably more focused on the elected pay. But I'm, to the point of, actually, what I thought you were going to say, Stu, was, does this allow them to go forward with the executive pay plan that has the city manager's pay on there as an E6? So I apologize that my brain went there. But
see, I'm just worried that this is obviously just guessing.
yeah.
Michael stay on while they can do a search. The new mayor can do a search.
Mhm.
I'm making that assumption. So he should get compensated. I sort of think we all agree, somewhere north of 250. And it may take a year before they can hire and bring on and transition to a new city manager.
Mhm.
So I don't think he should be. I think somehow we need to give them cover that they can give him a salary above 250. All we are doing is making a recommendation, but they can't go higher than what our recommendation is. So I'm just asking if our recommendation is a range up to 294, can they give the next, starting in December, the city manager 270, 260, 255, whatever they choose?
So they would be initially the mayor would be the one making the salary choice. That's why I think you need to look at the language about the adjustment being an annual performance increase, so that allows the incoming mayor to make a decision that would allow for adjustment upon taking office, we'll say, at the earliest. So the effective date of the enacting ordinance would be the first Monday in December. That would be the very first opportunity for any pay compensation related changes under the ordinance.
Of
So
2025?
in 2026, well, for 2025, yes,
Yeah, okay.
correct. And
Right.
so, I would expect that you need, if what you're talking about is the opportunity, if we're talking about a transition, and again, we're not trying to really talk about incumbents per se here, talk about people. But if the mayor had, the new incoming mayor had an opportunity for transitioning, it would be important that you have language that allows for a pay adjustment at the mayor's point of decision, right? Now, there's confirmation that would happen. There's still confirmation process for the council. But generally, you'd want to be able to have language that wouldn't cause anybody any pause around the ability to do that. I think that language around annual performance increase is, I don't have a legal opinion, but my professional opinion is that's probably going to be limiting
Trish,
in that regard.
I'm so confused right now what we can and can't do and what the city council does or does not do based on our recommendation. Is it possible for you to run all this by this city attorney and on
Yes,
Monday, give us some
absolutely.
guidance and
All right. Thanks, Stu. Barbara, you had your hand up. And took it down? Question?
I'm just concerned about, I keep hearing Michael's name, and Trish has already responded to that. I think it should be the position and not the person,
Correct.
because we're forward looking, and I keep hearing the incumbent, and I'm a little uncomfortable with that. We shouldn't be making recommendations on incumbents. We're looking forward.
Point taken. You're exactly right, actually. Precisely correct.
Yeah, and you don't want to write a language. I mean, that's one of the guidance all the time. You don't want to write language around a person. But I think what you're attempting to do for the incoming mayor and the incoming electorate is to put language in place that allows for, the objective is, what I'm hearing, is a quality, high level individual in order to be the highest leadership level in the city government.
Are the reviews done on an annual basis with the calendar year? So they'll be done in December for the
They're
city.
done
When
on
are they done? I'm just curious.
hire date, based on hire date.
So on a higher day. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and suggest that we adopt in principle the following statements. And Tricia, make sure that this wording is correct. So that first, that the commission believes that the city manager should be paid, should be highly qualified and paid somewhere between $250,000 and $294,000 with pay scale adjustments. That's number one. Two, the commission believes that the city manager's salary should be reviewed and kept above his or her direct reports. And three, that the commission believes that future commissions should not be asked to discuss or recommend pay ranges for the city manager. So if we were to adopt that in principle, then Tricia could take those things back to the legal department and see if that's dandy. What do you guys
I
think?
support that.
I agree.
Me too.
Yeah, this is Brandon. Brandon, I support that.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So
Are we gonna put anything about that? I agree, but are we gonna put anything that we agree with the classic comp study recommendation? Oh, we can't do that, Trisha.
well, we don't know.
Sorry, my dog is barking, but,
That's a lot, Faye.
No, the portion about it being on the, no longer under the commission, that it
Oh.
become on an executive position like others. That like, no, I'm just asking.
Yeah, we should stick that in our report. I mean, we can use that as backup to our last point.
Statement, that's what I'm saying, add that
Yeah,
verbiage. I'm agree
absolutely.
with everything you said thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've agreed in principle to those points. Tricia will take that back to our esteemed city lawyer and ask him if this is good, bad, or indifferent, and if there's any problems with it, and then report back to us next week. Yay. Okay, nice job. So moving forward, do you want to deal with the mayor or do you want to deal with alderpersons next?
I vote mayor.
Okay. Since you voted, that's it. Done. Mayor it is.
Thank you.
All
So,
right. Well
same
done.
language. No,
So we listened to Faye.
no.
Yeah. So the current mayor makes, whatever it is, 98.3 or 5 or some such thing. We have talked about the fact that perhaps this is too low for salary for mayor of this city. So I open up to the floor any recommendations that anybody has with respect to recommended compensation going forward for the mayor. And before anybody says anything, Tricia, do we have to also include this with pay scale adjustments thing with the mayor as well, or is that not the case?
it hasn't been the case. That doesn't mean that's not a consideration for you all.
Okay.
It hasn't been the case. You can tell that, the last commission, the consideration was for not for the mayor, but for the council members, the CPI calculation. So, I mean, this is open. This is
Okay.
it's up to the commission to make any kind of recommendation that way.
All right. So I leave it to anyone to make a recommendation or comment on the pay scale for the mayor, future mayor. Sienna.
We, on more than one occasion, I heard the figure $120,000 on the mayor's salary from both of the aldermen that I interviewed. And I would recommend that as a starting point of discussion, 120. I do have a concern. The mayor's salary has not been increased for at least 8 years, if not longer. Am I correct?
I believe it's 12.
Yeah. So I think that should be a consideration, or should be helpful for us in any recommendation that we do make. I do think, though, going from 98 to 120 is a significant percent. So the discussion, if we don't make it a range, are we going to and lose any influence that we might have in changing the salary? by sticking with such a high percent of an increase. So that's just a thought that I wanted to throw out there. I honestly believe 120 is low. But since it is a figure that elected officials have given us, some elected officials have given us, that I think that that's an appropriate place to start.
Thank you, Sienna. I think the mayor's wife wanted more, though, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay, we have a suggestion on the table from Sienna, not in the form of a motion, it's just a discussion point at this time, that the mayor's salary be increased from 98, whatever it is, to $120,000. Discussion.
I'm leaning more towards the 160. That's the starting point for department head currently. And I understand that from 98, 160, so it is a lot, but it hasn't been increased in 12 years.
All right, Barbara, it's, got it at 160, so we have 120, 160. Purpose of the underlying Barbara's comment is the fact that that is the approximate pay for department heads today. Comments, Faye?
Tricia, if we had, let's say for 12 years, what would have been the average rate of increase percentage?
I think you could probably use about 2.5% as maybe a CPI.
CPI?
And our for a fair number of years, 2.5% was around the amount that we have used in collective bargaining and have carried that through our other pay scales. That doesn't account for merit increases, which employees had been receiving merit increases as well. So if you were to take both of them into consideration, you're probably more in the 4 to 5% range.
And what perks do they get as well?
The mayor?
Yeah.
So the
Any-
mayor is entitled to our civil service benefits, so pension, health, life, supplemental life, deferred compensation. The mayor's part of the 401k, which the city provides 7.35%, and it's a 5% contribution from pay. There's our EAP, other kinds of benefits that are provided to employees. You can join our life insurance plan. There are some voluntary benefit plans he can join as well. So it's a full range of benefits that are provided to our civil service people: annual leave, sick leave.
Thank you. All right, so we have Sienna in it suggesting a 120, Barbara 160 because of that size of department heads. I'm just looking at some other mayors in that bit of data that was provided to us by Tricia early on. I think the city of Baltimore, much more complicated, so forth, is at 209. Most of the rest of them are below $100,000 in Maryland, at least the larger cities in Maryland. Sienna.
One more question for Trish. Trish, the benefits package for the mayor, what's the cost to the city?
So generally, we look at costing our benefits somewhere between 30 and 35% of salary.
35, 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you did it at 120, it'd be, 40,000. If you did it at 160, it'd be close to 50-ish thousand. Just as a note.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, your comparison with the department heads is your primary. They all have that.
They have the same benefit.
Yeah, they have the same benefit package. So I don't know that really translates into total comp unless you also translate that into total comp for the department heads. But I just wanted to give more realistic information. We're talking about 160. That's the base of the recommended executive scale for the E5s. Our our staff is making more than that. Most individuals were sitting at the top of their range in FY '24, which is around 185. Except the fire chief and the police chief were higher than that. So then when they moved into this, there was very little pay change moving into the new scale for nearly everybody, like 0.18%. And so though you're under 190 for department heads. I'm just giving you that because I think you wanted to know. And we're looking at it from a base rate, but that's not what you tend to bring people in at. And some people have grown over time, like there was room for movement for them.
And
There's
Tricia,
never been in alignment with department heads.
yeah, I was just going to ask that. I mean, so the mayor's salary, at least from the sound of it, is essentially fixed for 4 years, right?
Yeah, and that's not unusual to do. That's definitely what happens with the Anne Arundel County executive pay. And having worked for the county a very long time before that, generally it makes it really challenging to come before an elected body and then make changes to pay. And if you're running for office, your second term, whatever, then that tends to influence things as well. So I noted that the 2022 bill that changed pay for the council people, for the chair, the vice chair, and the other members of the county council rather, adjusted their rates, but it doesn't appear as if the county executive has had a pay adjustment since 2017, and that's at 142 currently.
I was
Just
just going to
for
ask
a
that
point of
question.
information, yeah.
So the county executive is making 142 at this point.
Correct. And so they would be in their cycle in 2026.
Okay.
For that to be reset if that's the way it worked.
So, okay, so we have 120, 160 on the table. And we also know that the county executive is making 142. I'm going to just throw out my sense. I personally kind of think 160 is kind of high with respect to the proposal. But of course, that's just one person talking. I mean, I'll throw out 140. Because we know we don't know, but it's very likely that will remain fixed for 4 years or for the term of the mayor. So, so we have 3 on the table: 120, 140, 160. How would you like to proceed?
I'm comfortable with 120.
120? Do you want to make a motion to that effect?
No, I'm not that brave.
Oh, come on.
Sienna should make that motion. It was her great recommendation.
Yeah, will you make a motion?
I
The mayor's watching.
I'm leaning slightly towards the 140 because of the county executives. But because of the recommendation of the alderman that I spoke to of 120, I'll make a motion that we go for 120.
All right, motion has been made by Sienna Scott.
I will second it.
And seconded by Faye, that the mayor be paid, just 1 second, be paid $120,000 per year. And according to Tricia's comment, that is to be fixed for 4 years. I guess you probably should talk to the city lawyer about that too, but that sounds like
do that.
Yeah, just so we know. All right, so motion's on the table, made by Sienna, seconded by Faye, that the mayor be paid $120,000 per year going forward. Discussion. If there's no discussion,
Stu.
go ahead, Stu. Go ahead.
I'm back home.
Welcome, welcome.
Hey all.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the 160. I think it's it's a 7-day a week, 24-hour a day job. I don't think the city council would approve 160. So I'll go with Paul, split the difference of 140 with the adjustments that we're talking about.
I think you might have missed it, Stu.
No, I know there's a motion on the floor.
No, not that. Just to clarify, I don't know that the mayor has adjustments. I asked Tricia that question. So I think we're talking about, we're going to ask the legal counsel, but I think it's just fixed.
It is fixed. If the adjustments could be made legally, then I'd be for that. If they can't, then they can't. But
I'll pose the question and get back to you guys.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Okay, so my discussion is, did I hear that the county executive for Anne Arundel County is at 142,000 going forward?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I can't see how it's going to be comparable. They think the mayor of Annapolis would warrant that type of salary increase for less constituents and less responsibilities. That is my reason for the 120. I think it's definitely worthy of a 160 position. I just can't see how within the community we could justify that the mayor of Annapolis should be paid more than the county council exec. And that is the information I wanted to offer. If they're going to be coming in at 2026, 5 at 142,000.
Yeah.
And I know the demands of the city of Annapolis is far different, but not more than the county exec. So that is the reason why I'm leaning towards the 120. I just wanted to offer that. And also, as I said previously, the mayor's pay had not gone up because the city wasn't making money. It was not making money to sustain that in the budget, but the budget has since changed from what I've heard and read. So therefore, it is definitely warrant after 12 years. And that verbiage should be noted in there that the salary had not been increased in 12 years. I would recommend in our recommendation, but I think that might be more realistic that 120,000 could get through as opposed to 140 or 160. That's all I have to offer. Thanks.
Thank you.
I get your point. For some reason, why was I thinking the county executive was more like 170?
Yeah, no, Tricia just offered that a moment ago while you were in transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's nothing that you just missed that the part of it.
So
Correct,
do we know positively?
Yes, I got a copy of their elected officials' pay schedule. And I think the sheriff is making 177.
Now, how much is that dog making? That's what I want to know. Is that yours?
Too much.
Is that?
Not mine. I have a pit bull. He's got a higher pitch.
Yeah. All right. We have a motion on the table, seconded, and we're in discussion now that the mayor be paid $120,000 going forward. And also adding that a note that this salary, his current salary, which is 98 plus, has not changed, and we'll find out how many years that is. So I'll go ahead and call for a vote. I think. Well, are there any other comments? So I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of the $120,000 motion made by Sienna, I guess, raise your hand.
Aye.
Maybe you should call the roll.
Okay.
Because
Paul,
it's hard to do this way. Yes to the motion.
okay. Faye? Yes, she has her hand up.
Yes to the motion.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Oppose.
Opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Sienna?
Yes to the motion.
Stu?
Oppose.
And Brandon?
Aye.
All right, so by my count, the motion passes with 2 nays, 4 yeas, 2 nays. The motion passes. Okay, thank you all. Appreciate that. And good discussion as well. And then, Tricia, you'll get back to us with regard to that issue of, I forget what the wording is, but whether there are step increases or whatever associated with the mayor's pay. Right?
Well, we would probably look at that as, can we adjust the flat rate?
Yeah.
Recommendation to adjust the flat rate, and how would that be
Thank you.
framed? So
Okay.
various possibilities, if there are various possibilities.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right, going forward, to the alderpersons. Currently, alderpersons are making 18.5 or so. I think it's 18.3. Is that right? So I open up, and of course, we've talked to all but one, I think, of the alderpersons, maybe all of them by now, and heard their comments on pay. We have heard the mayor's comments on alderperson pay. Who mayor believes they should be paid more. We have also heard the city manager, who felt like they had significant job responsibilities. And then we also, when we're having this discussion, we want to talk not just about pay, but they have raised the issue of perks, as well as the possibility of adding an aide as part of that perk package. Which raises another interesting question. Are we even allowed to do that, Tricia? I guess you should ask the lawyer about that too. Adding a staff person in a recommendation, can we do that?
That would
I don't
be
know.
separate. And I mean, what the manner in which that would happen is like, it wouldn't come as a recommendation to an ordinance to enact a change to that particular section of the code.
Okay.
It would only be advisory.
Got it.
And then they would need to ask for that in the budget process, and it would have to be funded.
Okay. So that would be at the bottom. We would just have like footnotes or something saying, we also suggest, if we decided to do that, we also suggest X, Y, and Z.
I can ask that of the city attorney as well.
Yeah, just so it's clear, so we know how to phrase it. We may not go in that direction, but just so we would know. Okay, I open it up to anyone who'd like to make a recommendation.
Question. I have a question before we jump into that sort of ties into it, though. I'm very curious. I don't remember what DeJuan's responses were to the questions we asked. And I asked that because I think we've all sort of acknowledged that the current salary keeps qualified people without the wherewithal from being involved, entering into a primary or an election. So DeJuan's the only one on the council that sort of fits this alternative. I don't know how to even describe it, but somewhat different from the remaining councilmen who have council people who have alternative incomes, professional incomes, and retirement incomes, and those kinds of things.
Who was supposed to talk to DeJuan, or did we hear from DeJuan? Hi, Sienna.
I spoke to DeJuan, and I have his responses right here in front of me. In fact, the salary. I also spoke to Brooks. And his responses were very similar to DeJuan's. I think they're both at similar places in their lives. DeJuan recommends between $35,000 and $45,000 would be ideal for the alderperson. And he used I thought it was an excellent argument that is the going rate for most part-time jobs today. And he says, as well as Brooks, that they are spending 30 to 45 hours a week on this position. So I was going to start there with a recommendation of 30 to 45. Brooks did give me a figure that ideally a $5,000 a year, so that would be $20,000 on top of the current, which brings us to 38. he thought was more in line with what the alderperson's compensation should be. So they were both very similar in their remarks. Both of them were not as concerned about staffing. They would like to see one person maybe split between each 4 alderpersons for things such as helping with emails, helping direct constituent issues, that sort of thing. But I don't have any more input from either one of them on salary specifically.
That's great. That's good.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yep. So we've heard from everybody. And also, I think we heard from, maybe it was Stuart, who talked to one of our, Lisa Rodvian.
Yeah.
And the county council person is paid 42, but they also have a full-time staff person. Is that correct, Stu?
Correct. And they get allowances to do various things.
Tricia? Oh, I'm sorry,
Actually,
Stu. Let's do
actually,
that.
they're paid a little higher than that. So the chair's paid 49,540. The vice chair is paid 45,461, and all the other members are paid 44,295.
44,295.
I believe what I heard from Stu when he talked with Lisa Rodvian is that she thought that 40,000 seemed reasonable for city council. I don't know that she was replying that they're paid 40,000 or 42.
What she specifically said is they should either get double, if not triple, what they're currently getting.
Yeah.
So just for purposes of discussion, I'm going to throw out the $40,000 figure.
So a motion has been made by Stu to pay city alderman, just a second here while I write this down, city alderpersons, $40,000 per year. This is salary only.
Salary only, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a second to Stu's motion? Anyone? I'm not hearing a second to Stuart's motion. All right. I would open the floor to another motion. Let's pick a pay. Go ahead, Sienna.
I tend to be fiscally conservative. And my fear, I would like whatever we recommend to actually take place, to be put into practice. So jumping from 18 to 40 seems to me a significant jump. And this may be, I would be more comfortable in the $32,000 to $35,000 range.
Do you want to make a motion to that effect? Because I think we have to go with a
specific amount.
Well, that's another great question every time. Tricia, are we doing straight up salary like with the mayor?
You don't have to. I've seen all kinds of combinations out there. I've seen where they've said in the first year, it's this amount. In the second year, it's that amount. In the third year, it's yet another amount. And the fourth year, yet another amount there. So I've seen where they've done hard figures for each of the years. As you know, and Faye's very familiar with this, the last time around, it was like, okay, we have a rate, we know we want to increase it, so we added $1,000 each of those years and the CPI. So there was an attempt to move from 15,000 to where it is now by this incremental 1,000 each year plus the CPI. The CPI tends to be 2 to 3%. And so that's where that's come from.
Thank you. So Sienna, it sounds like you're free to make a motion if you wish, for a range. Would you like to do that?
I will make a motion to increase the alderperson's salaries to a range between 32 and 40.
Okay.
Well, let me just clarify.
Yeah.
It's not a, if you have a range, there's who's the discretionary force here. So what I recommend to you is if you ultimately want a range, maybe you choose the rate. Maybe it's 32 the first year, it's 33 the second year, it's 34 the third year, and it's 35 in the fourth year. That would get you that range, but you're gonna need to have something that everybody makes the same and we know exactly what that is each of those years. It's not hiring somebody where you have a choice of, okay, I think you have more experience, so I'm going to put you at the 35 rather than the 32. You need something that is instructive for each of those years.
And the last commission, it was most language was written up with the council persons, indicating that the salary should be increased as follows. Year one, the term, excuse me, it should increase by a percentage of the CPI as calculated 12 months annually, BWI range, bottom what region rather. In 2 years, salary should increase another 1,000. So Tricia's correct. They kept adding, as we know, and then in the fourth year, and I'm going back to when Rob said he started it, he made 14,000. So he's however long, and he's my particular alderman, and now he's at 18 something. So that's kind of like $1,000 every year, 18, and that's really not covering cost of living, you know?
So perhaps what you do is in the first year, you set your base rate. And in the second year, you increase it by whatever amount, with or without a CPI. And so the current language as written, you could probably start with a base rate and then in the second year have your additional 1,000 plus the CPI, which is already written. But just offering another way to consider how you structure this and would therefore have in the form of an amendment to the current language.
And I also wanted to add in that comments that they're not going to vote. It's going to appear that they're self-serving if they vote for an increase. So is this likely to pass? Let's hope it does. But it's an election year. And from the conversations I'm having with elected officials, other than the ones I surveyed, that it could appear self-serving. So they very well may vote down our motion. Let's hope they don't, because it's well deserved to have an increase. But I just wanted to offer that. So thank you for letting me offer that.
Stuart?
Well, it's every 4 years, it's an election year when they have to do this. That's why it's set up this way. And it puts them in a bind, at least the ones who are running for re-election. And at this point, that's everybody but Ross and Rhonda, right? That we know of. So,
and the mayor
is
a vote.
Pardon?
The mayor is a vote as well. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But when they vote, they can, the legislation is very clear, they cannot vote anything above what we recommend. And I think it's our job in our recommendation to be as strong as possible, not dollar-wise, figure-wise, a specific figure, as that we think the current salary is woefully inadequate for the following reasons, to give them cover to do what's politically necessary for the next 4 years.
Yeah, but if they let's say I am running again for my council position and I'm voting to recommend my salary, let's say double, or And every constituent is going to interpret that my taxes are going to go up because you want an increase. So that could be a hindrance to them in a reelection process. I'm just being mindful, working as a campaign treasurer for so many years, and for also working at 1.5 of the 8 city council bipartisan bank with me. So I kind of think that's why I keep getting thrown on these commissions, because I do have a little bit of knowledge. So, but I'm about to run for my ward again, and I just voted to double the salary of that. How are my constituents going to interpret that? So they might be mindful. That's what I'm saying. It'll appear again self-serving. So I agree with an increase needs to happen. I fully agree that it's so long. Again, like the mayor's position, it's just a painstaking job that no matter what dollar amount, it very well may not cover the compensation of the hours and the time you invest. And the mayor said it. You got to have a love and a vision. It's not for the money usually, no matter what that was. Why you began. So same for the council people. I think they have a passion for their ward in the city. So again, I'm just offering information. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Well, actually, we really don't even yet have a motion on the floor. Sienna, you heard what Tricia said. She suggested that perhaps you may want to consider making a motion or talking about a salary increase that starts at, let's just say, your number of 32 and increases by X each year. Do you want to take that under advisement? How would you like to move forward?
I will make a motion to do that, to begin their salary in 2026, begin the new county city council at 32,000, and then increase it $2,000 per year for the following 4 years.
3 years.
3 years, sorry.
All right, so the motion is when this takes effect to start the salary, or to increase the salary of of alderpersons at that time from 18X to $32,000 with an annual increase of $2,000 per year for the duration of the term. Second, we have a second discussion.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think, just to make a note, our job, whether they pass it or not, Faye's probably right, but whether they pass it or not, it's up to them. But I think, we have a responsibility to make a recommendation. So I'm good with that. Any other comments? No? Okay.
One comment. I'm sorry, somebody else.
No, go ahead. Shoot, Faye.
Can it be amended to maybe 1,000 per year as opposed to 2,000 is subsequent year?
You can offer,
consider that, or they're up.
You can offer a friendly amendment and Sienna can take it or not take it.
Friendly amendment.
Sienna,
they get the 2,000 per year for the travel for training, and then they get this other stipend. So they get that 2,000 also for that purpose. So that's why I'm thinking about the 1,000 per year as opposed to 2,000. Sienna, that's why I'm offering that.
Sienna, you've got a go ahead.
I hope we do not change it because that will bring the set. I think that's easier for them to adopt because than the starting salary, because people don't look at that figure so much as they look at the starting figure, and that would bring the salary up to better to where it should be in 4 years when the next commission has to look at it. So I'm happy with 2,000 a year increase.
Okay, Sienna, you have a friendly amendment offered. It's up to you to accept it or reject it to reduce your 2,000 to 1,000. Do you want to accept or reject that?
I would reject that.
That's fine.
In my prior life of salary administration, $1,000 a year was extremely frustrating to present to anyone as salary for a year. So that's my reason there. I also think the 2,000 brings us closer to where we eventually want to get. So that's the reason I'm resisting that amendment.
No problem. Friendly amendment has been rejected. Tricia?
I just have a clarifying question. Are you also dropping out the calculation of the CPI? So you're really talking about a flat adjustment with no CPI consideration,
A
which
good
is the
point.
current
Yeah.
language. I just want to make sure I'm clear about what
Thank
you're
you.
limiting it to.
That's a good point. We hadn't talked about that. So CPI, you said is about 2%,
2 to 3.
2 to 3. So if we kept the CPI and we started at 32 and added 2,000 a year, it would be 32 plus, then the next year would be 34 plus CPI. So you'd be at 34 and a half, 35. So in that range. So what do you all think about that? We did not include that in the amendment. We can go back and fix that. But what do you guys think about keeping the CPI increase language? And that's current, right, Tricia?
It's current. I mean, it's a little problematic. I don't think the language works perfectly for us because we don't even get that information until January, late January. In fact, I don't think it's out yet, but there's a lot of things going on at the federal level right now. So we generally have to then go retroactively apply it because it says the first Monday, it's effective the first Monday in December, which is not helpful language administratively, but
I think that I may be wrong, but I thought I saw that the CPI was 2.3 for 24. That came out this week.
it has come out this week.
I
I
don't
think,
know.
and the figure I remember was 2.3, and people, the headlines were that was pretty good. But
So we're looking at an amendment or potential change to the amendment, I guess. So you'd have two choices. One is you just do 32 plus 2,000 increase each of the remaining 3 years, or 2,000 plus 2,000. 32,000 plus a 2,000 increase and CPI for each of the remaining 3 years. So how would you all like to handle that?
hey, Paul, can I offer a suggestion? Just to see where we are, can we just break that down and do 3 separate show of see how people are? Like, are people okay with 32,000? Are people okay with 2,000 annual after that? Are people okay with adding or not adding CPI?
I'm good with
Just a show of hands.
yeah. You kind of, let's break it up. Let's just, as you said, let's break it up. So I'm good personally. I'm very happy with 32 plus 222, and I don't care about CPI. Others?
I agree, Paul.
Barbara?
I'm good with that.
Faye?
I'm not good with that. I'm
Faye?
32. I'm good with 32. I'm not good with the 1,000, but with 2,000, but I am good with the CPI, to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Stuart?
I could go with 32, 2, and CPI, but CPI could or couldn't go with this, but I'd prefer to include it.
Brandon?
I'm in agreement.
With what?
The 32 and the 222.
32, 222, no CPI.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say what I think I heard, and you all tell me whether that's right or wrong. I think I heard 3 persons, myself, Sienna, Brandon, or I guess 4 persons. Barbara? With 32, 222, no CPI. And then 2 didn't like the 2, but want CPI, and another 2 plus CPI, and that was Stuart. Is that correct?
I thought Brandon went with the CPI.
He did. He did. No, Brandon did not. Brandon, you want to
I did
clarify?
not, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the 32 and then the 222 adjustments you mentioned earlier.
Right, without CPI.
Correct, without CPI.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's right. So there's
Mhm.
4 222s and then two others, each slightly different from
Okay,
that.
I'm perfectly happy with 32,222.
All right. So I think we have a motion.
That's the motion on the floor, isn't it?
I think so. So we have, yeah, the motion on the floor is 32, with the 222, does not include CPI. All those, well, yeah, all those in favor, I guess, raise your hand, put it sort of in the screen. So it's Rankin, Scott, Barbara, Brandon, and
Deanna.
Stuart. And then Faye, are you for that or against it? You're against, right? Against. Okay, so the motion passes. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. All right. So what we've adopted then is to make a recommendation for alderperson paid to increase whatever the proper timing is from current pay to 32,000 with annual increases of 2,000 per year, no CPI adjustment. Super, thank you. Do we have time? Do you want to go on to, perks and stuff like that? Because
Yeah.
okay, fire away.
If we
Regretfully, I
have
will
time.
have to leave at 10:30, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I've got a hard
Me
stop
as well.
now, but thank you all.
3 of us have a hard stop, sounds like it.
Yeah, so we're 10:17, so we got, 10 minutes. Maybe we can knock this
And
off.
I just wanted to offer to you, Paul, I sent everybody an email that has all the minutes, all the agendas.
Cool, thank you very much.
And Trish, can you try to talk to the city attorney today and
Yes,
get us the answers so we can
Yes.
contemplate it over the weekend?
absolutely. I'll do that.
Thank you. I'd like to throw out, I don't even know a motion, but just for discussion. I don't think anyone was, from our interviews, none of them were complaining about what perks they were getting. But there was some discussion about allowing them some allowance for constituent meetings or something like that.
Yeah, Ross, two things came up in Ross's interview, Stuart, related to that. One was he thought that the city should pay for their cell phone or at least a portion thereof. That was one thing. And the other, I forget who came, it wasn't from Ross maybe, but someone mentioned exactly as you said that they should get maybe a little extra money because they spend so much just on, they have to do their meetings in the mornings and have coffees and all that stuff. So I don't know how to put that in the form of a, recommendation, but anybody want to take a crack at it or what do you all think?
They're already getting 500, correct? Tricia, do they get $500 expense? It was
They get-
recommended in prior commissions.
So currently,
I don't think they get.
I'm reading, increase allowance of council expenditures by 500 per year to a total of 2,000.
to a
That was
total,
recommended by the prior commission as well.
Yeah.
So none of that got adopted?
No.
one of the
2,000
recommendation, I'm sorry, Stu, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, go ahead.
One of the points, Faye, was not to go to a receipt-based
Mm-hmm.
method, but to give them an allowance and how they spent it is how they spent it.
So they don't get one now.
So they do, but
Right.
the
That's my
prior
point. They
one,
get something now.
they had an amount, but they had to give receipts in order to kind of draw from that.
So how much do they get now? This is, and what we're, is
They
what,
get 2,000.
and go
I
ahead.
thought it
Stuart.
was 2,000, but it was for training and education or some
Yeah,
They
quality.
I
definitely
thought
get
too.
2,000
Go ahead.
training and education. They definitely get 2,000. But the above that is the part I'm not clear on.
I kind of feel, so personally, I'm really sympathetic to the idea that they have to use their own cell phone, which I think is kind of strange personally.
I
And
agree.
in this day and age, and so maybe and they do all of them. They have to go to coffees in the morning and all that stuff because they're working, like a Duan or any of the others probably.
So I'm going to read from the legislation, from the approved change to the code. And it says each alderman and alderwoman shall be afforded an annual allowance of $2,000 to be used exclusively for expenses related to the performance of usual and customary constituent services. Such expenses may include supplies for town halls and constituent outreach, education, and training.
Oh, all encompassed. Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
it,
I thank you for that, Trisha. But I'm concerned about the cell phone. Good point, Paul. I have two cell phones. So if I have the bank's information and mine, in the event they lose their personal information phone, they lose some of our private city information, correct? So a separate phone may be a great suggestion in this day and age of technology, because that's a challenge if that information, we got to be very much secure about our information. So
I would also say, Faye, that part of what happens in disclosure is that, cell phone information and electronic information is just able to be disclosed and, subpoenaed and revealed. And it makes an important point about separation of personal and professional information.
So, Tricia, is what you're saying, so if one of our city alderpersons were sued for any reason, they could go after their phone logs, is that
It would
right?
ask for phone records as
Yeah.
well. But the point is it's personal.
It's discoverable
I
too.
think I would like to talk to the city attorney about that, just how that would work. I think that should enter into the conversation though. The
So-
difference between what's your personal information and then what would be issued by the city and therefore discoverable. It's all those things, right?
Yep. Stuart?
It's a Hillary Clinton issue, right?
Yeah.
So my question, Trish, is who gets a city phone these days? Which positions?
There are a number of employees. If your phone is used or your contact information is necessarily available and a business use, then city phones are issued. Those individuals tend to be all the department heads for sure. Key positions where I believe I'm not entirely sure, but I believe some of our professionals who are responsible for maybe in engineering, in inspections, where that information that you need to gather, your apps that are your working apps, so it's your computer in your hand, or it's your cell phones. But I can get more information about that for you.
No,
That
that
matters.
that was my point. All these city heads and other workers have a phone assigned to them, a
Yeah.
city phone. Why shouldn't the city council have a phone assigned?
I think
to
one
them?
city council person does have a cell phone issued by the city.
They have iPads.
Yeah, they have iPads, but I think
Yeah,
one
iPads.
also has a cell phone.
That
But
was true for a former older person. I
Okay,
don't know
thank
that
you.
it's true for any current ones. It may be just be it's information I don't have.
Gotcha.
If you
Okay.
could check on that, we'd appreciate it. I personally, this is just a comment, and we can get back to it after Tricia talks to the city attorney. But personally, I'm going to suggest that we also recommend that these guys and gals get pardon me for that, that these people get a cell phone.
I would put a
Well,
motion on the floor that they get a cell phone.
I'll second it.
All right, so Faye, motion to give council persons cell phones for
For
city
business
business.
use, for
Right.
constituent use only.
Yeah, motion gives just a sec. And the second by Stu, is that right?
Yes.
All those in, well, discussion.
I think it's more than just constituent, it's any city business, right?
Any city business. Thank you, Stu. I want to be you when I grow up. You got the right language.
Oh, stop.
So
We all want to be Stu. What's that all about? Give all the persons a cell phone. I'm just going to say for city business, for the conduct of city business.
perfect. I'll take that a friendly amendment. That's how I'll make my recommendation. That'll work.
That'll work. Any comment on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passed unanimously.
Is
He's
Brandon in favor?
gone.
He left.
Oh, he's gone. Okay, thank you.
All right, motion passed unanimously. That's wonderful. We are at 10:26 now.
Very productive meeting.
So just to leave you with all thoughts, we should think about maybe increasing that $2,000 figure to 2,500 or something, maybe
Let's
next
chat.
time.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we'll chat about that on,
But
we meet Monday
Monday.
At
Yeah.
5 PM.
5
at
p.m.
5.
But
Monday,
can you run by the city attorney whether or not would be covered? What's currently covered by the 2,000, is that broad enough to
Okay.
cover their whatever they need, or should it be broadened if we agree, if that's what we want? You and the city attorney are going to be spending a lot of time together.
it'll be fun.
I'm used to that.
All right, I think we've accomplished a ton today, and I'm really, really happy with what you guys did today. Thank you very, very much for your efforts, for this excellent conversation. And I think we did a good job. I'm excited. So we'll get together at 5 p.m. on Monday. You should have in your inboxes already from Tricia copies of all of the updated minutes, as well as, is there anything else?
The agendas are in there as well.
And the agendas as well. And thank you. Have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Guys, have a great weekend.
All right.